Okay, we have one here from Diary of a CEO. Why Women Can't Find Real Love by Scott Galloway, or at least featured.
There's knock-on effects for women. And I think the data is also suggesting that the crisis amongst men is causing, in many situations, a crisis for women as well. Because we both, men and women exist in an ecosystem that needs to be somewhat balanced. So I'd like to talk about the impact this is having on women. One of the things I found interesting, it's actually because of a young woman came up to me in a bookshop. I was just there looking for my own book, as you do, just because it just come out. And she said something to me that a lot of women that have approached me or DM'd me have said quite frequently, which is she's over the age of 30 now. She's committed much of her life to her career. She's single. She's tried dating apps and she doesn't enjoy it. And part of me started to think about the fact she might be caught in a sort of generational gap where they used to meet in person, but now the generation below her meet online. And she concluded what she was saying to me with the fact that she believes, or she's starting to believe, that maybe there's something wrong with her. Because she's over the age of 30, she's single, she can't find a partner. She told me she's never had a boyfriend. She's killing it in her career. And she was in that bookshop looking for advice from a book. And I feel compelled, because I know she listens to this podcast, to ask as many people as I can the question to find an answer for her, because there's someone very close to me in my life who I literally text when I left the bookshop and I said, I've just met you in the bookshop. Every sentence that woman said to me in the bookshop is the exact word for word, even like I've tried going to the gym and that's...
Brutal truth. I'm killing it in my career, probably over 30. I earn a decent salary, if not high. Most men I've priced out of my dating pool because my standards have to be at least on my level or higher. And that's what it is. And the men that are on her standards or higher, her level, older than her as well by a few years, are not looking at women over 30. This is the conundrum women face when they chase a career.
That's not working. Is the same as a close friend in my life, one of my best friends, has said to me as well. And there's not just one in my personal life, there's 3 or 4.
Well, we all know women, I'm sure this happens to you all the time, really interesting, high character, successful, attractive women, usually in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s.
And then, by the way, I never had a boyfriend. Sorry, but that's a red flag. You have needs as a woman, so were you sleeping around? What are the odds are that you have a low body count? I'm just wondering. It just sounds weird. Never had a boyfriend. So the red flags there are multiple. 1, you didn't bother pursuing a relationship at all, chased only your career. So in a way, you're selfish. You never really thought about kids or a husband. You thought about your career first. And 2, your needs had to be met somehow. So the likelihood that you slept around and engaged in a bunch of casual hookups, friends with benefits, short-term flings, is highly probable. Now, none of that is attractive to a man looking for a woman seriously through the lens of like marriage and children. It is what it is.
Who will say, I can't find anyone to date. And it's not that they can't find anyone to date. It's that they can't find anyone they want to date. Exactly. And there's some dynamics here. The first is... Can
I just interject to validate your point there? She also said to me, I'm not willing to drop my standards.
Well, and
by the way, guys, you have to understand, what does it mean when a woman drops her standards? Okay, check this out. Because we only understand this from the framework of a man's mind because we're men. In order for a man to get a woman, you have to, listen to the word, the verbiage there. Get, as in you went and grabbed, you went and took. Okay, you get a woman as a man. You had to go out and convince. Okay, you're like the predator prey, or the fisherman and the fish, or whatever other analogy you want to use. When you think of this from a woman's state of mind, I want you guys to pay very close attention to this. This is the reason women have this, I'd rather not settle and get cats. And men go, but I'm a good man and women don't want me. A woman settling down with a good man, whatever you would consider a good man as a man, is worse than not settling at all. Let me repeat that for you. A woman settling down with a man below her is worse than her not settling at all. Here's why. A low value man getting a woman, by definition, makes her seem low value. It's like in the candy store analogy that we've used before. Women walk in the store, have all the top shelf best candies. Then as time passes on, She loses access to the top shelf, eventually moves to the mid shelf, and then eventually past the wall, the bottom shelf. Now, the bottom shelf is full of cobwebs, full of candy that's expired, full of holes in the wrappers, bugs crawling around there, bug sandwich men, essentially. She looks at the candy below on the bottom shelf and goes, what the fuck? That's so disgusting. Me choosing to eat that denotes to everybody else what a starving bitch I am. I have no other option. It's better I starve than to be seen eating that as if I am that low or I'm struggling that much that I accepted a candy with fucking bugs coming out of it. After having tasted all the top shelf Belgian chocolates freshly made melt in your mouth and then having to step down to bug Kit Kats is unimaginable, is unfathomable. She would rather starve. On the other hand, men have to fight for the bug chocolates at the bottom. This analogy works both ways. You have to work hard as hell just to be able to get and afford the bottom shelf. Most men look at the top shelf Belgian chocolates and will be window shopping for the rest of their lives. They will never attain the Belgian chocolates. Those are for your eyes only, not your mouth. Very few attain top shelf money. So when a man sees a woman turn down a good guy, the psychological issue for the man is, I had to work so hard. I had to do so much just to have a fucking bug Kit Kat. I appreciate the work I had to do. It's not fair that you would snub me. You just don't understand the amount of work required because you had access to the top shelf the entire time. And stepping down for you is inconceivable. I'm still a chocolate. I'm still somewhat edible. I should be treated with a modicum of respect. Instead, I'm invisible. You gawk at me. You turn your nose up at me. You look at me with disgust. I'm invisible. You don't even want to peek at the bottom shelf. It's beneath you. That's how women look at men that are on the bottom shelf. Beneath them. It's worse than. I rather starve. I will not gestate for 9 months with a low-tier male. I rather not destroy my womb in my body, potentially. That's the thought process, man. And it's been that way for millennia. This is why we've advanced as a people as far as we have. Women have always been brutal in their mate choices. It's not any different in the rest of the animal kingdom. The strongest survive. Men fight. The most fittest get to reproduce. It's the same. It doesn't matter if you want to envelop culture, society, and all this other human invented filters on top of nature's grand work. Still operates at the baseline the same way. This is why they say red pill truths. This is why they say dual mating strategy. This is why women don't want men shorter than them. These are fundamental truths on the biological level that no matter how far we advance as a society will never change. Let's continue before I keep ragging on, Jesus Christ.
It's like Warren Buffett said, the key to a healthy marriage is low expectations. What's happening is, and I think his name's Chris Williams. He kind of reminds me of you. He's this handsome young podcaster who's blowing by all us old guys. Do you know Chris?
Yeah, I know Chris.
Anyways, he does a fantastic job, and I've learned a lot from him. But he calls it the high heels effect. And that is every year for the last 50 years, women have become better educated and they're making more money. In urban centers, they've now, under the age of 30, blown by. They're now making more money. More single women in the U.S. own houses than single men. They're getting taller every year. And the reason he uses height is that 50% of women say they won't date a guy shorter than them. It's probably more like 80%. And even if they're not cognizant of it, just anthropologically, subconsciously, they're just usually not attracted to men shorter than them because they have something telling them that this individual is less likely to be able to physically protect you. So you're just at a disadvantage from a height standpoint. Now, metaphorically, women are getting taller every year and men are getting shorter, right? Men mate socioeconomically horizontally and down, women horizontally and up. But when the pool of men who are socioeconomically senior to women, it just means that the quote unquote pool of viable mates for women is going down every year. And women have been told they can have it all. And what I found is you can't have it all. Or let me put it this way, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. And that to focus on their careers, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I think economic viability is just super important for everyone, including women. But the reality is...
How deep have you thought about that? Is economic viability that important if it leads to population collapse of a nation and then the initial death of that society? How important is economic viability? What are the downstream effects to a society when women place more importance on work than family? What are the downstream effects on a society that rewards slaving away at work instead of creating families? Healthy families, nuclear families, not broken homes, single parent households, none of that. What are the downstream effects of advancing women in all aspects of society to the detriment of men, not alongside men, to the detriment? What are the downstream effects of berating, beating down, and marginalizing men, manhood, and masculinity long-term to society? I think we're seeing it bear fruit. Our replenishment rates are cratering. Marriage as a percentage is plummeted. Divorce is skyrocketing. People are on more pharmaceuticals than they've ever been. Mental illness skyrocketed. Drug abuse skyrocketed. Homelessness skyrocketed. All the things wrong with a person on the individual level has skyrocketed. Most likely due to the fact of these downstream effects. We know that's what it is. Can't say them all out loud all at once, though. So is there a balance between how far we push economic viability in women, right? I'm assuming this is kind of like a sliding scale and we've tipped it way too far in one direction. And this is society crumbling live before our very eyes. And there's a certain amount, there's women that love working. There's type A personalities. There's some that produce absolute incredible results in the workforce, but there is also a huge population of women that would not want to be at work 9 to 5 slaving away, would prefer to be at home with kids. But the direction is you have to work as a woman. You have to get it on your own. Men ain't shit. Strong and independent. We're not pushing a balanced message in society today for women like, hey, if you want to work, you should work and work hard and go after your dreams. But at the same time, hey, families are amazing too, just as amazing as work. And you'll find fulfillment in each path. Just make sure it's the one that resonates with your heart the most. Don't feel forced into going a direction like working for your whole life if that's not what you really want to do. And teach women how to find their path in life without shaming them into the buzzsaw of like corporate cuckoldry. I mean, if this system is working, quote, as intended and is advancing women so well, why is it that they now report being the most unhappiest they've ever been when compared to the generations prior? Isn't that crazy?
As they have gotten taller, men have gotten shorter, so there's just less pairing. Society has a tendency to evaluate a woman's success through the lens of her romantic success. Not as much for men. People look at you and think, and I don't know your relationship status, but people look at you like, guy who's killing it. He's killing it, and he's single. Oh my God, it's good to be Stephen Bartlett. A woman in her 30s who's killing it professional as alone, it's like super successful, but... Your single status is a feature. For women, it's seen as a bug.
Because, candy store analogy, she started off grabbing the top shelf, couldn't lock one down. Then she went to the middle shelf, couldn't lock one down. She worked her way to the bottom. As time passes, didn't lock shit down. She went in, ravaged the candy store, didn't come out with any candy, ate them all on the spot. Society's looking at women like, bozo, you've been in the candy store for years. You couldn't grab one you liked and walked out? That's what it is.
And you both might be just as lonely. But or you might be engaging in, and I'm projecting here, I have no idea what your situation is here. But there's this dynamic where the men who are in the top 10% can engage in Portia polygamy. And that is women with online dating now believe, there's something wrong with this, that, and this is going to get me in trouble, but let's rate everybody. Most people will acknowledge that some people are more attractive than others, and they find certain people less and more attractive. A woman of average attractiveness can have a relationship, and when I say relationship, that's code for sex, with someone who's in the top 10%. But that individual is probably not going to establish a long-term relationship. And because of the lack of friction and connection and meeting people via text message or online dating, the top 10% of men are getting 80+ % of the opportunities for short-term relationships or sex. So they can engage in what's called Portia polygamy, and that there's not a lot of motivation for them to establish long-term relationships, which leads to bad behavior and a lack of household formation. So the guys that most women want and believe that they should be in a relationship with are the least likely to establish a long-term relationship.
Women have been taught to have absolutely no standards for the men they open their legs for. Sexual empowerment is the reason why men have switched into sleeping around. Women dictate who has sex. Why is he making it seem like, which is causing men now to have bad behaviors and not have families? Women are giving it away for free. Women used to demand a ring. Like, you understand? We went from you need to marry me to have sex to I'm going to come over, hookah and chill. I never even met you. It's straight off of Tinder. When I was in college, I literally had girls come over, would tell them, dude, bring wine, bring some food, bring some drinks, bring some beer, bring some whatever. Women I have never met. It is a profile picture. I could have been a serial killer creep. Showed up. Roommate can tell you. I need to bring him on here so he can tell you guys some of these crazy stories. Would come over, spend the night, complete stranger, never met, no, quick bar check, drink, make sure this guy's in a creep, nothing. Matched, came over, even got them to bring shit like wine, food, whatever. Does that sound like marriage material? I mean, either of us, like, that's not marriage material for a man and that's not marriage material for a woman. That kind of behavior is what's pushed in mainstream society today. But women have a huge hand in this. It's not just men, but they always have to frame it. It's you're a man, it's your fault. You see how they do this? It's never anybody else's fault but men's. And that's what annoys us about this message, dude. It takes two to tango.
And then the bottom 90 either have little or absolutely no interest from women. So I want to be clear, no woman is responsible for servicing a man. But what I think has happened is this dynamic where, because online has given everyone access to everyone, the majority of women are all interested in the same group. And this group is now much less likely to engage in a long-term relationship. And the result is just there's a disproportionate number of men and women who, quite frankly, are just lonely. But men have a tendency, when they don't have a romantic relationship, to not only not have that romantic relationship, but then they have fewer friends. They go out less. They're less professionally successful. If I didn't have a mate who told me we need to save for a house, I'm not sure I wouldn't have been smoking pot and drinking every night.
Oh my God, man. Now we need women to do basic things like save money for a house. Holy shit. See, this is why I can't take this dude seriously. As a man, you don't get that woman if you don't have all those things already. If you don't have your shit together, if you don't manage your emotions correctly, if you don't have charisma, if you don't have a friend group, if you don't have a high-paying job, if you don't have all the things he already mentioned, you don't get women, period. It doesn't come after getting a woman. That makes no fucking sense. My Lord. This is the mainstream conversation, dude. Honestly, we are fucked. Yes. Dude, get a passport, escape the plantation. Listen, I'm telling you guys, here's the fucking blueprint to succeed. Work out hard. Do multiple things like weightlifting and running. Get your cardio and your muscle up. The state of your mental health depends on it. And then start reading books. Expand your knowledge. There is incredible information that you can get from books. If you have a question, somebody probably wrote about it already. Start honing your craft. Everybody has a passion and a natural talent, man. I don't know what yours is. I don't know how you grew up or what skills you've attained in life, but it can be monetized, especially with the internet today. Try to think outside the box. You're not a 9-to-5 wage cuck for the rest of your life. This could be a temporary thing while you build up your dream, your side hustle. Turn that into a full-fledged business. Some of you may strike gold, and within a few months or a year, you can quit your job. For others, you might have to work 5, 6, 7, 10 years for that to become a reality, but you can escape. Don't wait, start. Make mistakes along the way. Stop trying to plan your path perfectly. I need this. First I got to find out. Nope, just fucking hit start like a video game. You don't know any of the combinations? Who gives a shit? You'll figure it out on accident as you go along. You don't need to read a fucking manual every single time you need to press start game. Nobody does that anyway. Real life works the same. Put the fucking CD in and start rocking. That's life, dude. When you start losing weight or gaining weight, if you need to, you're going to start feeling better. You'll get more energy. Your thoughts will become clear, your mind sharper in general, and vice versa. Now that your mind is this way, it'll be easier to not give in to vices like alcohol, drugs, video games, porn, whatever it is that you soothe yourself with. You'll no longer have the need to soothe yourself with those things. Your life then becomes more enriched. You start to go out and do things, and you start to meet people naturally because you're only being yourself through your hobbies, whether you're like going on motorcycles or hiking or going to an MMA gym and meeting like-minded individuals. And from there, you start to establish social networks, a friend group, a brotherhood potentially. And from there on, the web keeps spreading wider and wider and wider, and your life keeps enriching. This is how you get ahead. This is what you need to do. There is no teach me, bro. There's no show me a step, fucking 1-2 step process. Here's what I need to do. Here's how I need to start. You have to look deep into yourself as a man and figure out your way. And by your way, I mean your unique individual way, because nobody can force you down a path that you have no passion for. I can't tell you how to make it. I can't Google shit for you. And any information I may present to you that's a 1 step here, step 3 there, step 5 there will go right over your fucking head because it doesn't resonate deeply in your soul. It's not what interests you. It's just boring directions to follow. Very monotone, not attention grabbing. What's an easy first step for you guys? Spartan challenge. I harp on about it all the time. It's 6 months of you making a promise to yourself. It's always at the end of every video. Some of you click on it, some of you don't, and even less attempt it. Most brush it off of, it's bullshit. I already do a couple of those things here and there anyways, and I'm not going to give up this part, and it's okay in moderation, and completely miss the fucking point of why you make the 6-month promise to yourself anyway. Opportunity is abundant and all around you. Truly, it really is. You just need to be cognizant of it, that it's there. Society beats you down and tells you everything is hopeless, everything is worthless, you're doomed anyway. That's the perfect cuck mentality to have and keep you enslaved inside the system for eternity. It's hard to drill these concepts in a man's head because he's so deep into his own programming, into what the Matrix taught him, that the moment a man hears some shit like stop playing video games, his brain turns off. Stop watching anime. His brain turns off. It's like a deep core of your identity just got attacked and you shut the entire message off without listening to the value of the word. That's part of the trap, man. I don't say quit them forever. I'm not saying never play video games again. Never watch anime again. I'm saying while you go your transformative process, while you're undergoing self-improvement, you have to put those things away and you have to focus 100% on growth. You can't half-ass this. You can't half self-improve and half indulge. It doesn't work that way. You only self-improve when you couple it with sacrifice. And this is coming from somebody that was addicted to video games, probably addicted to porn in some manner in my teenage years. Played for hours. I was one of you. I was a, quote, bug sandwich. I was a fucking little hermit in my teenage years, high school years. Hardly went out and hung out with friends after graduating. Didn't know what my life was looking like. Everything seemed hopeless. Had no idea what to do. College wasn't for me. Hated school. Loved video games. Rather get on and play with the boys. Had a shitty, low-paying job at some fucking basically an AutoZone. Wondering what the fuck was my life going to be like in the next 5-10 years. Is this it? Is this peaking? Is this what my life is going to look like forever? It can't be. My dreams. I used to have crazy, vivid dreams of a whole different life for myself. It was like I was living a lie. This wasn't what I was destined for. And the difference between me falling into that trap perpetually and ending up being nobody and nothing at my age now, it's so scary to think that it was just a few decisions. That's all it is. Decisions to wake up earlier, to eat cleaner, to work out every day even when you don't feel like it, to read some books that may help you in your journey to starting a business, to moving across the country, to whatever it is that you need to do, learn how to code, whatever it is. You're only a few decisions away from radically altering your life. It just takes time, baby steps. Every single day, you just have to be a percentage 0.1% better than you were yesterday. And at the end of the year, those are massive, gigantic leaps forward in your progression as a man. This is what I try to drill in you guys. All this is coming out of love, man, because I understand the reality of what awaits you if you don't make these changes in life. I almost fell for it. And look where I'm at now. My life is completely different because I took those risks. I hit my rock bottom. I got tired of being nothing and nobody and invisible. My phone would never ring, nothing, no calls, days, weeks at a time, not a single fucking notification. I lived that life. Now I have to put my shit on silent because people bother me all the time. It's a complete 180 of who I used to be. And the difference between who I used to be and who I am now is simply down to a few decisions. That's it. That's it. Daily decisions that have amounted into this change over a long period of time. There's no magic pill. You're not going to transform tomorrow. But what I can guarantee you is if you take one step forward at a time, you will have a earth-shattering transformation. That I know for a fact. So yes, I'm going to keep ragging on video games. I'm going to keep shitting on anime and all the other coping mechanisms you guys have. But you need to understand the nuance. You are not in a position in your life to be consuming any of that at the moment. You cannot be a consumer. You have to switch into the producer class. This is how you escape. All right, Jesus Christ. Yet another rant. It's the tea. It has no sugar. Or caffeine. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I should do more of that.
Right. She was like, if you want to continue to have a relationship and have sex with me, you've got to get your shit together. Young men need that. They need the guardrail of a romantic interest, the cocktail or the peanut butter and chocolate of a household where one person is more risk aggressive. That's really important. And pushing the boundaries of what can be done. And then another person who's more practical. And that oftentimes goes into gender roles. Not always, and sometimes it's flipped. But that's a powerful combination. 1 + 1 really does equal 3. And across every species, you see that the majority of really wonderful things, including offspring, but other things in terms of building a society, are a mix of different attributes. And so we have just fewer and fewer of that peanut butter and chocolate in households. There are now more people not only living alone, but living with their parents than ever before because they're not establishing this relationship. So it has...
What the fuck, dude? People are living with their parents because they're not establishing relationships. People are living in their parents because of crushing economic issues. Holy hell. You know what inflation is like today? You know what it's like trying to buy a house for $500,000-$600,000 at an 8% interest rate? Men aren't staying home because they're fucking love interests. Men are staying home because they can't even afford their own apartment, their studio apartment. They can hardly afford groceries. Wages have dried up since like the 90s. Crushing debt from colleges. Dischargeable? Nope. You carry that shit for life. The main reason for all these woes society comes down to economics. First and foremost, everything is a distant second. It's not even close. Fix the economics and the rest of it will most likely right itself. We are economically in shambles today. This is why dating is so messed up. Nobody's really got any money for shit. Want to know what the symptoms for that is? Men regress into boys, sitting at home, coping from the stress of not being able to turn themselves into men with video games and porn. That's coping. That's a stress response. Women, on the other hand, have begun selling their bodies wholesale on OnlyFans. More women today engage in that kind of business activity, straight up selling their bodies, whether it's a private DM on Instagram that flies them out to Dubai, or it's something like OnlyFans, or having a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship, which has exploded. It's become normalized. It's mainstream now. That's all a symptom of the economic disparities we're facing today. Holy shit, I'm just going to let this video play for the remainder 4 minutes because these points are so shit.
It's absolutely bad for women, but typically, women still are economically successful, still find places to put that love, and quite frankly, don't start killing themselves or killing others. So it's not that it's any less bad, but the knock-on effects tend to be less bad for society.
And I went through the research from the Pew research, but also from the sort of Centers of Disease Control, just to clarify some of these numbers for women as well. And they cement everything you've said. Only 13% of women over 30 were married in 1970. That number has now risen to almost half. The divorce rate for women over 30 has doubled in the past 50 years. In 1970, only 10% of women over 30 were childless. Today, that number has risen to almost 30%. In 1970, only 28% of women over 30 were earning more than their husbands. Today, that number has risen to almost 50%. And in 1970, only 12% of women over 30 were living alone. Today, that number has risen to 35%. And on the point of loneliness, I was looking at how many men versus how many women have a best friend. And it's multiples more. So multiple more women still have relationships regardless of this state of affairs because they're better at, as you say, forming social connections in non-romantic relationships with other women than men are. So it's a pretty bleak picture. And maybe most importantly of all, there's a clear direction of travel here. Mm-hmm. And if you extrapolate out that direction of travel, we don't get to a good place. Population decline you spoke of and how that lopsided society, depression, mental health, suicide.
If you were to try and have one answer that would address not all of it, but really take a dent out of obesity, addiction, deaths of despair, male abandonment, divorce, depression, if we raised, and I don't know the numbers here, but if we raised in the United States the minimum wage, if we tripled the minimum wage, I think you would go a long way to solving a lot of those problems. I think putting more money in the pockets of young people and reducing the rage and the shame and the deaths of despair, and would go so far to solving loneliness. I think it's pretty basic. At the end of World War II, the top tax rate was 92%. We just decided rich people are here to reinvest in the middle class. When Reagan entered office and when Thatcher entered office, the top tax rates were about 70%. By the time Reagan left office, it was 27%. What we've seen across studies, University of California, Riverside and UC Berkeley did studies on minimum wage. And in Washington State, California, New York, where they dramatically raised minimum wage, the incumbents will tell you the sky's going to fall, businesses are going to go out of business, people are going to stop hiring. It's going to expedite them trying to figure out a way to buy the new Burgertron to make burgers, not humans. And what they found was the opposite, that when you increase minimum wage, even dramatically, it grew the economy and jobs. Because here's the wonderful thing about lower and middle income people. When you give them money, they spend it. And so the multiplier effect is more stimulative than when you crowd money into the top 1%. So if a magic wand, first thing, a dramatic increase in minimum wage. And there's very few things we could do that would have this much impact without increasing the deficit. And it's time. We have unemployment at historic lows. So the employment market could absorb an increase in mandatory minimum wage. As a percentage of GDP, wages have never been lower, yet corporate profits have never been greater. So yeah, corporate profits would be hit. Yeah, the markets might go down, and it would absolutely be worth it. This is ground zero. That's where we start. Capitalism is about a dignity of work. And because there's such a demand, there's now 1.7 open jobs for every one person seeking a job in the US. I think it's 1.3 to 1 in the US and in the UK. We need to put more money in the hands of lower and middle income households. Full stop.
Curious on some of the comments. I went out with some female colleagues a few weeks ago. One of them hadn't seen the other in a while and asked about her boyfriend. Girl B mentioned she broke up with him, and girl A replied with, "Oh, he seems so nice." Girl B replied, "Yeah, he was pretty much perfect. Kind, handsome, successful, supportive, but I got bored with him." Girl B then mentioned she's dating a new guy who also seemed perfect. Girl A asked if she thinks this new guy is the one. Girl B replied, "No, this won't last. I'm starting to get bored with this one also." And girl A replies, "I get you. Both of these women are in their 30s. I thought to myself, having recently been dumped, being a perfect guy checking all the boxes doesn't matter anymore with modern women. Why bother? No wonder things like passport bros exist." I'm not going to read any other one. That perfectly encapsulates what men are dealing with. And thank you so guys for tuning in. If you made it this far, appreciate everybody who's bought some shirts. I got to shill my stuff. You know what I mean? Let me shill my fucking t-shirts for you guys because it does actually help a lot. Thank you so much for everybody that's bought some shirts. It makes a huge dent into not having to be a cuck for AdSense and depending on YouTube and eventually becoming completely independent of it. So shout outs to you guys. I'll see you on the next one.